guest speaker. I don't know what to say about this guy. I'm trying to get past the fact that he's a New York football and baseball fan, so don't boo him when he comes up here. He's a nice guy. Actually, he's a colleague. He is, as he likes to say, he's a New Yorker living in Texas, and he was actually there the day that the towers fell, which gives him a unique insight to the events of 9/11. He is also our K-Texas Brownwood Bureau reporter. Everybody, please help me welcome Joshua Peguero.
Such a somber day. I want to thank you all for your time. I want to thank Rick Phelps for allowing me to speak on such a somber day about my experiences on 9/11. Rick is someone I've seen at every city and county meeting, although sometimes I think he's spending more time on his phone than what's being said. So, all right. But I'm very appreciative of this invite. And since I'm at church, I want to thank God and Jesus Christ for allowing me to be able to share this experience here. I'll give a brief introduction. I won't delve too much into my personal background. Some people here in Brownwood know me very well, but not all of you do. And really today's event is not about me, but remembering those first responders and people that just gave their lives. I started with K-Texas in November of 2015, and I'm approaching 2 years. To be very clear, our goal in this area is to be the #1 place people around here go online and on television for their news stories. I publish 2 to 3 stories every day, and oftentimes that includes weekends. We believe in competition, and I believe in being #1. I don't believe in giving out awards to people in second place. And in our business, there are winners or losers. There's no gray area. I grew up in Manhattan on 134th Street between Broadway and Riverside. The neighborhood is called Manhattanville. I was raised in a single-parent household with my dad leaving when I was 3 years old and my brother was 1.5 years. He actually hit my mom, and she was wise enough to know that if he does it once, he'll do it again. He was absent all of my life, but I was surrounded by so many people, by friends, cousins, and family that I didn't grow up having a void or need. I think what also helped was that for 6 or 7 years we were in therapy starting when I was a kid. I ended up graduating from Columbia University Journalism School. My first professional internship was in my undergraduate years at Reuters, the business news wire, where I spent 2 years before leaving to pursue a career in television. I wake up every morning with that passion for work because I don't believe for 1 second I'm better than any person or that I'm special. I just work hard and happen to have been very lucky. But journalism is a career I fell into, and I encourage you children to be open and aware when you're young to find out what you're passionate about. Just be very open and listen to those around you. I first got into journalism by way of writing when I was in 3rd grade. I had a teacher who encouraged me to write poetry and keep a journal. I would read paper and watch the news with my mother. She always did that, and a part of that is because she arrived to this country when she was 13 years old. She arrived to New York City, and that's how she picked up English very quickly. My mom moved to the neighborhood where we grew up as a teen. She left the Dominican Republic and began her life here. Growing up, some people would think I was mixed race because I'm obviously black, but I have Eurocentric features. But a lot of it is because the Dominican Republic is a complicated place. At one point, it was known as the island of Hispaniola. It was a vital place and point in the Atlantic slave trade. And so you had all these Europeans and African slaves mixing with the indigenous population. But on September 11, 2001, I remember my first year of high school at Manhattan Center for Science and Math. It's one of those city schools you had to take an exam to get in and show some ability in both. But don't ask me how I got in because my mom enrolled me in an elementary and middle school where it was all about the arts. So we started classes in September in New York. And I can remember being in my homeroom class and hearing the loudspeaker an announcement. I don't remember too well what was said because I sat near the window and all I could hear was siren after siren. Our high school was in the far east side of Manhattan near a highway. The one thing I can recall from the announcement was when the school said a second plane has hit the tower, everyone please go outside to the hallway and proceed in an orderly fashion outside the school. Most of how we got out was all a blur. I felt so antsy walking through the highway as if something bad was happening, but no one knew what. I think what made me feel so anxious was that my mom worked about a few blocks away from the Twin Towers on what's spelled Houston Street, but we New Yorkers pronounce it Houston. She worked at a state park. She was a park ranger there. And I remember all the dust and she remembers all the dust and the people bleeding and screaming and coming to the park. The staff would get them towels to take care of them. Walking out of the school, I didn't know any of that was going on. That we were walking out. I didn't know that the buildings had fallen, or at least one of the buildings had fallen already. What made it more eerie was the fact that there weren't any cars traveling along that highway, which is called the FDR. To put it in perspective, that's like a major highway in Dallas having no cars at 8 in the morning. There was no cars. It was completely shut down. But I walked towards the highway, and all I could remember seeing was a big, thick cloud of dust mushrooming up to the sky. There was only one tower. I remember telling myself, my God, what is this? I'm only 14 years old thinking I must be living in some sort of movie or dream. And I don't know how long it took for the other tower to fall, but I know it happened quickly once I looked up. The only image I can recall after seeing it fall, it was like stack upon stack. That's exactly how it felt. It just kept stacking down. And I remember waiting in line at the payphone. It was like massive panic. At that time, I only knew 2 people with cell phones. It's not nowadays where everyone has an iPhone. There were only 2 people who had cell phones, at least in my life, and it was my mom and my aunt. And every time I called my mom, it wouldn't go through, so I called my aunt, who picked me up along with my brother and cousin, who both went to school in the Upper West Side. I remember riding in a minivan and looking at people waiting for the trains and buses, so demoralized. She actually stopped to pick up a few people and we gave them rides. When I arrived at my grandma's house, we just turned on the television and all I kept seeing, and I kept seeing all the reports. I mean, these reports and images, they kept replaying when the planes hit, and they had video. It was like a constant replay all day long. Eventually, my mom arrived late at night. She was covered in dust, and I remember how traumatized she was. We all went outside to a local park right across the street, and we all kept hearing how the George Washington Bridge was shut down, how the Empire State Building was next, that the White House was going to get bombed. I just imagined the social media age, how crazy that would have went. Especially now when you read so much stuff, a lot of it isn't truth. It's like, I don't even want to imagine how it would have been back then. And to this day, I kept all the newspaper clippings and magazine covers from that day or from that week. They're all in my mom's house. Back then, journalism was so visceral. Like I remember, you had magazine pictures of people jumping out of buildings. Like they actually printed that and published that. But most of the pictures also had police officers and firefighters going in to rescue people and sacrificing their lives. The news all week was dedicated to covering the funerals of those first responders who actually went back and tried to save people. Like I remember that left a lasting imprint on me. Just watching all those firemen and police officers, EMS workers being dedicated. And that's what giving yourself to a greater cause, a higher purpose is all about. Many of us, myself included, we fall prey to some material things, but I encourage y'all to find that sort of career or profession, or whatever it is you choose to do, where you give yourself to a higher purpose, not just, like the newest cell phone or game. For better or for worse, 9/11 changed New York City. No more could you walk around Times Square or the train station without seeing officers. From that point on, you see bomb-sniffing dogs and police officers with assault rifles. That was the new norm. You subjected yourself to random searches on the train or bus if you had a backpack. It just became the way of life. It didn't matter how you looked like. If you had a backpack or any sort of bag, they would check you. That's just the way it worked. People always ask me, what's New York attitude? And I can tell you that the New York attitude is that when they attack you and when they knock you down, you come back even stronger and build a bigger tower. And that's exactly what we did. I mean, you can't be scared of intimidation or some terrorists trying to destroy your way of life. I caution that this is my story and my experience I share with you. New York City is a city of nearly 8.5 million people, making it the populous city in the US. And everyone else may have a different experience. I know some people who lost loved ones, and I also know others who just moved to New Jersey because they couldn't take the trauma and the image. It was just too much. Like I remember riding a bike about 2 or 3 years later, all the way down to the area with my cousins, and it's just, you can still like smell the smoke. It didn't go away for a while. That attack for me defined my high school experience. As the following September 11, 2002, my brother was 12, he was diagnosed with lupus. It was another crashing blow to my mom, to the point where she ended up leaving her job because she couldn't afford to pay for his medical costs. But we bounced back. And that's what you do as a New Yorker, you bounce back, and as an American. And I encourage you all, when you fall down and you get defeat or a loss, you dust yourself off and you hit it back even harder. That's it. Thank you.
And just to make it clear, Wheel of Fortune on your phone is very addictive, and that's all that I'm going to say about